After the initial success of my trip to Vietnam in November 2014, using Airbnb exclusively for my bookings of the apartments, I decided to take the plunge again the following year in June in 2015 and book exclusively with Airbnb again for a 2.5 month escape up to Cairns, Queensland. I loathe the weather down in Melbourne in winter, and when it gets the top temperatures of 12 degrees during the day or less. As it turned out, I happened to leave early June on a miserable Melbourne day, and it was in single figures, the temperature. And when I arrived in Cairns 3 hours 20 minutes later by plane, it was beautiful, sunny, and probably 25 to 27 degrees, and it was heaven. So I certainly felt like I made the right move as far as the travel was concerned. I took a minibus up to Port Douglas. That was the first port of call. I was going to stay there for 2 weeks before spending the remainder of my time down in Cairns. The idea was that I've never been to Cairns or Port Douglas before, so I thought I'd just check out Port Douglas for a short period of time, because it is a bit smaller than Cairns, and I thought I might get bored there, and it's not the cheapest place on earth as well. I booked a motel there, so this actually wasn't a private residence, so no great hassles at all there. Very professionally run, had new owners, and they knew what they were doing, and the accommodation was very good, and it was close to town, and quite a reasonable price compared to what you would pay through other booking options online. So I did definitely get a discount using Airbnb, but of course with Airbnb you need to pay up front, and so I'd booked well in excess of a month earlier, so of course my money had been tied up in that time. Whereas with the other booking agencies, you don't pay until you actually arrive. So, it's swings and roundabouts, I guess, as far as that's concerned. However, my experience there was excellent. The motel, the Port Douglas motel, was an excellent place to stay. Had no problems at all there, and enjoyed my 2 weeks in Port Douglas. It's pretty well an upmarket area for couples with kids. There seems to be a lot of young kids in tow, so young families seem to be attracted there, I guess fairly middle class. So it was a pleasant enough place, and I was able to live reasonably cheaply up there, so it didn't cost me a great deal, so it was reasonable that way. And I had a decent time there. There was a bit of rain, but you can't hear everything. So that was Port Douglas. Not much to report, because, as I say, it was a professionally run motel, and so it wasn't a particularly true indication of the Airbnb experience, because that happens more in the private homes. So after 2 weeks, I returned to Cairns. And this time I did stay at a private residence north of Cairns itself, probably about a half-hour walk from the centre of the city. The house itself was a bit unusual in that it's sort of like an open plan type house with accommodation upstairs. And my room had an ensuite. I had a bedroom with an ensuite. I thought I had a kitchenette as part of the deal in my own space, but it wasn't. It was outside the bedroom door. The other thing I wasn't aware of in the Airbnb advertisement was that the owner of the Airbnb residence actually had another permanent tenant upstairs. So that was a bit of a shock to me, but they were fairly quiet and kept to themselves in the main, so they didn't cause any great hassles in that respect. But I felt like I wasn't fully aware of the circumstances of that particular accommodation because of that information not being in the advertisement. That being said, it was a very nice part of town. You could walk to town or get a bus, and it was fine. It was very, very good. Now, the only thing is I stayed there for a month, which is a long time really, and I had high hopes of maybe interacting with the host, but as it turned out, we weren't exactly the same personalities. It wasn't a clash of personalities, but he wasn't exactly my type of person. So it was a little strained at times. One of my major issues actually was that it could be quite noisy because he ran his business downstairs and there was really no doors between the downstairs and where I was upstairs apart from my bedroom door. So there was a bit of a bleeding sound coming through, which wasn't ideal, but not a huge problem. I only really had a noise issue one day, which was quite extraordinary. On a Saturday morning, I was awoken to major renovations taking place on the windows. It's a weatherboard place, and he decided to pull out the window frames, and it made an incredible racket when you're sort of jimmying out those the nails and what have you from the timber and what, made a had the sound of a building site for an hour or two. And he hadn't actually told me he was going to do that, and I sort of came out and looked on in shock, and he realised I was a bit shocked and then sort of explained the situation. And it didn't take too long to get done, but it would have been nice to have been told this was going to occur. And, quite frankly, I don't think he should have had that work done until he'd actually had the place clear from his normal bookings through Airbnb. But that's just one of those things. So look, it wasn't a perfect placement, and it showed that there can be a few little glitches with staying in a private home if you don't 100% click with your host. And I was very happy actually at the end of that month to get out and go to my next booking, which was only down the road a couple of kilometres. It was in a more down market part of town. But the advantage was that the second place I stayed at was totally self-contained. I had my cooking facilities, laundry, toilet, everything was all in a downstairs self-contained flat, and that was fantastic. Had a nice little garden around it too, and it was quite pleasant. It was also a fair way from town, about the same distance, and it wasn't in quite a nice an area, but it was very good value for what you paid, and the host was a nice guy. Not that I saw him much because he's running his own business, and he was out on the road most of the time doing that. So, but that was actually quite good, and I had no problems with that at all. A little bit of an issue with noise where they had a young daughter upstairs who made a bit of noise for an hour or two some nights, traipsing around on the floorboards, and the noise came through, but that was about it, and it wasn't as if it went late at night, so that was okay. But overall, yeah, that was a pretty good place to stay. So that worked out better than the first private place, which went for a month, and now it took me into July, and then I had one more place that I booked through Airbnb, which is up in Trinity Beach, which was say 10 kilometres or more from where I was staying, up on the northern beaches, and that was fantastic. It was quite a bus ride to get up there, but it was certainly worth the effort, and it was a nice little beach, a really cute boutique type beach with. There was a pub on the beach, and there was places to buy food if you want, and you could get the bus to the supermarkets and what have you. So it was quite convenient, and it was a self-contained unit as well, and had a couple of really nice balconies. And I spent a week there. That was the final week in Cairns, and that was really pleasurable. Never got to meet the host. They were a great communicator though, and everything went smoothly, and so I was able to basically check in myself and check myself out of there and make my way back to the airport.